It's Super Reader, also known as Mrs. Perez. I'm coming to you from my secret lair. I've got another book to read to you today. This one's called Down Comes the Rain. A lot of those books that I've read to you so far have been books that authors have written for fun or just to entertain us. But authors also write books to teach us things about real life, like the rain. This book has a lot of information in it to teach us about the rain. Down Comes the Rain by Franklin M. Branley and illustrated by James Graham Hale. Here comes the rain. Rain comes from clouds. It comes from big clouds and little clouds. It comes from black clouds, white clouds, and gray clouds. So where does the rain come from? Yeah, clouds. We knew that. But how did it get there? All clouds, big ones and little ones, gray ones and white ones, are made of billions of tiny drops of water. The drops are called droplets because they are so small. If this is the size of a drop of water, then a droplet would be just a tiny speck, even smaller than this one. Almost like if you were to take your pencil and make a little speck on your paper. Water droplets come from water vapor. Water vapor is a gas. There's always water vapor in the air, but you can't see it, you can't smell it, and you can't feel it. But it's there. Water vapor is made when water evaporates. That means the water changes from a liquid to a gas. Here's a little experiment that you can do. In the morning, if you put a little teaspoon of water on a saucer, a little plate, and you do that in the morning, and then by the evening, like when you go to bed at night, it should have evaporated into the air. So what that means is there won't be a drop of water there anymore. That drop of water will be in the air as a gas. Here's another example. See those clothes hanging on the line? Okay, when wet clothes hang on the clothesline, the water in them evaporates. The heat from the sun changes the water drops and droplets into water vapor. And then here's another example too. Just like the heat from the stove changes the water in a kettle into water vapor. If you would heat that water long enough, then all the water in the kettle would boil away and the water vapor will go up into the air. Okay, so the water evaporates and goes up into the air. Now most of the water vapor that's in the air will come from lakes and rivers and oceans. It comes from the leaves of plants and even from the wet ground. The heat from the sun causes the water to evaporate, and the water changes from the liquid to the gas, and the water vapor goes into the air. It goes up, 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 up. When you breathe out, you put water vapor into the air. You don't normally see this now, but it's there. But sometimes, if it's cold out, you can actually see your breath. And we saw this in the wintertime when we would blow out and we could see a little puff of breath. That's because the water vapor condenses. It will change from the gas to a little cloud. When cows, horses, dogs, and cats breathe out, they put water vapor into the air too. On a cold day, the water vapor changes to droplets and makes little clouds that you can see. That's because the air inside your body is warm. And when you breathe out, that air hits the cold air that's on the outside and it creates a little cloud that you can see. You can make water vapor change into water. You put a lot of ice into a glass of water. And then as the glass gets colder, the outside of the glass gets wet. Water vapor in the air is condensing on the glass. There may be so much condensation that the glass drips. Sometimes the glass stays dry. That means there's not so much water vapor in the air. Now, I actually did this today. Before I started reading this book, I put some water and some ice in a glass. If you can see, you can actually see water droplets on the outside. If I touch it, now like my hand is all wet because of the water that's condensing on the outside of the glass. Pretty cool, huh? You could try that experiment too. The air holds water vapor. The breeze carries it from one place to another. Much of the vapor moves up and away from the earth. The air above the earth is always cold. The higher you go, the colder it gets. And when the air gets cold enough, the water vapor in it condenses. The vapor changes to droplets, and the water droplets make the clouds. So the water evaporates, it goes high into the sky where it's cold, and then it forms tiny little droplets, and that's the cloud that you see. A single droplet is so small that you cannot see it, but you can see a cloud. That's because there are millions and millions and millions of water droplets in one single cloud. When clouds are thin and wispy, they're holding only a little bit of water. But when clouds are thick and dark, they're holding much more water. And inside those clouds, the droplets will join together to make bigger drops. And when the cloud can no longer hold them, the drops will fall to the earth. The sky is full of them. They fall through the air and they splatter on the ground. They're raindrops now. So once those clouds can't hold any more drops of water, the water comes down. Sometimes there's only a few raindrops that fall slowly. It's just drizzling outside. But sometimes there are lots of big drops that fall very fast. Now it's pouring. Water in the cloud makes rain. And when it stops raining, the sun comes out. And then once more, the water evaporates. It evaporates from lakes, rivers, and oceans. It evaporates from the leaves on the plants and the wet ground. It evaporates from the bodies of cows and dogs and horses, and even from you and me, like when we sweat. We're running outside at recess time, and we get so hot and we sweat, and then that sweat evaporates into the air. The water changes to vapor, that's the gas, and it's carried up and away from the earth where it's cold. And the water vapor cools, it condenses, making clouds. Water droplets join together to make water drops. And then the drops fall to the earth from the clouds. And then that whole water cycle happens again. The water that just fell to the earth evaporates and forms a cloud of condensation. And then it will rain. It'll come down as precipitation. Once more, it is raining. Did you catch those big words I said? Those are some $1 million words. And I'm going to show you a little chart right now with my brand new 1-day-old whiteboard. I'm just going to draw the water cycle for you real quick. Okay? So let me get that situated so you can see it a little better. Okay, how's that? All right, so let me start by drawing like some water. Okay, so I've got some water down below. This could be a lake. This could be the ocean, right? This could be a stream. Oh, we definitely have to have the sun. The sun is very important in this, right? Because the sun has to heat the water. Okay, so here's what happens. The sun heats the water, and then the water evaporates. It goes up into the sky. Here, let me write the word evaporate real quick. Evaporate. So the water evaporates and it turns into a gas. And once it gets way high up in the sky where it's really, really, really cold, that gas and the cold air is going to make a cloud, right? It's going to make a cloud. A cloud of condensation. That's $1 million word too. This is condensation. Condensation, that's the cloud. And then, remember what happens whenever there's so many water drops up in those clouds that they can't hold it anymore? Yeah, then you start to see some rainfall. And that $1 million word for when the rain comes down, that's precipitation. So let me put an arrow because the water drops are raining down on us, and that's called precipitation. Precipitation. Those are some big, big words. You know what? I think I'm going to write evaporation here. Yes. All right, so here are your $3 million words. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation. And if you give me a second, I'm going to teach you a little song about that. So be ready. Hi friends, I'm back with a song about the water cycle. Remember I drew this chart to show you how the water cycle works? So the sun heats the water and the water turns into a gas as water vapor, evaporates up into the sky where it's cold, and then the cold air turns the water vapor into droplets, and then there's droplets and droplets and droplets that form a cloud, and then the cloud can't hold all that water anymore, so then the rain starts coming down as precipitation. And that water cycle happens over and over and over again. The water evaporates, forms a cloud of condensation, and then comes down as precipitation. So here's my song about the water cycle. We're just gonna march in place. Water travels in a cycle, yes it does, yes it does. Water travels in a cycle, yes it does, yes it does. Now this part I want you to repeat after me, it's a little tricky. Say, it goes up in evaporation. Say that. It goes up in evaporation, forms a cloud of condensation. Say that part. Forms a cloud of condensation. It comes down as precipitation. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Let's try that ending part again because it's a little tricky. Say this with me. It goes up as evaporation, forms a cloud of condensation. It comes down as precipitation. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Let's do the whole thing. Water travels in a cycle. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Water travels in a cycle. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It goes up as evaporation, forms a cloud of condensation. It comes down as precipitation. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Now, why don't you go sing that song to your family and impress them with those $1 million words. See you tomorrow, super readers.